All right, lesson 1.1, points, lines, and shapes. This is the first lesson on your geometry journey. Today we're going to be discussing some of the most basic things in geometry, and this is some of the basic figures such as points, lines, angles, and shapes, as well as some notation that comes up a lot that if you don't understand could make things pretty confusing. So, without further ado, let's learn about these basic things in geometry. So the first thing we're going to learn about is a point. And a point is just a specific location in space. And what I mean by that is, look, let's say I wanted to find where our school is. All right? You'll see what Google Maps does is it gives us a point, and that's exactly the location of our school. So a point, all right, it's just a location in space. And it's like that. All right? Just a location in space. And how do we name it? All right, the way we name it is just using a capital letter. There's no other way to do it. When you use a capital letter, that's how you name it. And the example would be, we'll call this point A. That's our example of that, okay? Second one, a line. A line is just a straight set of points that is one-dimensional. All right, and that's a very confusing way to think of things, but this is the way I like to visualize it. Let's say we have 2 points, okay? Let's call it B and C. Between those 2 points is a infinite amount of points. And if you really look at them, they would just make a straight line. All right? So really a line is just the set of points between 2 points. But really, it's just, you know what a line is. You know it. You know what it is. Okay? And we usually use the 2 endpoints to name it. All right? So there's 2 ways to name a line. All right? The first one is using the endpoints, using 2 points. That's the first way. Now the way we would do that is in this line we would say BC, and to show that BC is a line we just draw a little line on top of it. That's the way we do it, okay? That's how we name this line. For this picture, that is line BC. Alright? Now the second way you might see is using script. All right, but just one letter. All right, so we could also call this line, let's say L. So this would be line L. All right, so there's 2 ways to do it using the 2 endpoints or 2 points, right, or just a scripted letter. 3, an angle. An angle is a shape formed by 2 lines that meet at a common point. All right. So these 2 lines right here, I got a line right over here, and I got a line over here, and they meet at this point right here. We call that the vertex. All right. And yeah, that's an angle. 2 lines that meet at a certain point. Now, this gets a little more complicated. So what we're going to write here is refer to page 3. We're going to come back to this. All right. And finally, we have shapes. All right. And so let me draw 2 shapes for you right here. 2 nice pretty shapes. We got this. So that we got a triangle, we'll call this ABC, and we got a square, we'll call this DEFG. Now naming shapes, this is really important. Don't take this for granted. I know what you're thinking, this is super simple. Well, there's a very specific way you have to do it. All right. First thing is that when we name a shape, we usually just put a little symbol of that shape in front of it. So that's a triangle. I'm going to draw a little triangle in front. All right. And then what you do is you go clockwise around naming it. Now it doesn't matter which point you start at. It never matters which point you start at, but you have to go clockwise in order. So let's start at point, let's say B. All right. You have to go in order. B, C, A. Okay. Now in this guy right here, this is a square, so we'll draw a little square. All right. And we're going to start a point and go clockwise. So if we started at point E, doesn't matter where you start, as long as you go in order. This would be E, F, G, D. E, F, G, D. You must go in order. I'm going to put that there. Must go in order. All right. So if I called this square EFDG, that would be wrong. Must go and count it in order. Got it? Good. All right. let's go into some important symbols. We've got three here that are super important. First one means parallel. These two little lines, if you've ever seen that, that means two lines that are parallel, all right? And what's parallel mean? Let's do a little review. It's two lines that never touch, all right? So how you might see this, you would see that AB is parallel to CD. Remember, these two lines mean parallel. When we name our lines, we put those little lines on top of it. So this tells me line AB is parallel to line CD. What that would look like is, let's say I had two lines. All right, this is my line. This is AB. All right, this is my second line. This is CD. I know they're not perfect, but if they went on forever, they probably wouldn't touch. I know what you're thinking. This is kind of askew, blah, blah, blah. You get the point, though. These are two lines that will never touch if they go on forever. They are parallel. The second one, man, people forget this one all the time, but this symbol means perpendicular. And what perpendicular means, and this is going to come up so much, so don't forget it, it means two lines that make a 90-degree angle. All right, they create a 90-degree angle. Another thing for 90 degrees is called a right angle. Okay, that's the symbol for angle. So let's say I said AB is, and we use that symbol, and we draw little lines. So this tells me line AB is perpendicular to line CD. What would that look like? Well, you have AB right over here, all right, and we have CD. Actually, let's go back. We have CD over here. So A, B, and C, D. And that makes a 90-degree angle. You might remember this, that box means 90 degrees. These angles are 90 degrees. A bad example of that would be something like this. As you can see here, this is bad. Why? Because those two lines aren't making 90-degree angles. They're smaller. They have to make a 90-degree angle when you use that. So this symbol means two lines that are making a 90-degree angle, okay? Get that ugliness out of here. Okay. And the third one we use is congruent. This equal sign with this little squiggle right there means congruent, and that means exactly the same size and shape. So basically they're the same. They're the same size and shape. So if I said AB was congruent to CD, that symbol means congruent. All right, we draw little lines. Well, it doesn't matter which way they're facing, okay? But they have to be the same size, and these two are, well, these two look about the same, okay? Don't give me any crap. They are the same, all right? So if this one was 5 inches, right, I would also know that CD is 5 inches because they are the same size. Now take note here, this is really important. The way that we put our congruent marks, all right, we always put marks on things that are congruent like this. We call those hashes, and that shows that two things are congruent. So this line right here tells me that it's congruent to CD because they have this little line going through it. We'll practice that right here. So draw each of the following statements. In triangle, right, we have our little symbol here, ABCD, and triangle, EFG. All right, well, let's start by drawing our two triangles. You should be using like a ruler or something. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use this tool. Okay, so I have my two triangles. All right, and let's label them correctly going around. Oh, man. We know, so in triangle ABC, let's label this, and we have triangle EFG. All right, EFG. You should draw along with me. All right, we know that AB, line AB, is congruent to line EF. So this guy right here, AB, is congruent to EF. So we put those lines, those hashes tell me that they're congruent. We also know BC is congruent to FG. So BC is congruent to FG. And the reason I'm using 2 now is so I don't confuse anything, right? I know BC is congruent to FG, not FE, because these both have 2. And finally, we know AC is congruent to EG. And we're going to use 3 here, so we know exactly that AC and EG are congruent. Beautiful job. Let's try this next one. MN, line MM, intersects with OP at point E. All right, so we have 2 lines. MN, all right, and we have OP, and they intersect at point E. Now we also know that MN is perpendicular to OP. So remember, we have to draw a 90-degree angle. So when they intersect at E, all right, they make a 90-degree angle. And that would be the perfect drawing of that. Remember, don't do anything that's not 90 degrees. It has to be a right angle. Naming angles, this is our final topic, okay? You can name an angle in 3 ways. All right, I said I'd come back, here we are. So in a triangle, remember, in an angle, there's the point where the 2 lines meet, and we call that the vertex, all right? That's where the 2 lines meet, right there, all right? The first way to name it is by its vertex. So the point over there is B, so we call this angle B. The second way to do it is by its number. And if you look over here, it has 1 over there, so we can call at the vertex, so we call this angle 1. And finally, you can use it the 3 letters surrounding it. All right. So right now, this has A, B, and C, and it's crucial that you put the vertex in the middle, right? So you have these 3 angles. So the vertex must be in the middle, which is B. So this is angle A. B is in the middle. C. The vertex must be in the middle there. Got it? So let's practice this a little. Let's mark. So we're going to name the marked angle in 3 ways. So this is our marked angle. It has a mark there. That's why it's the marked angle. We're going to name this in 3 ways. Well, let's start with the easy ones. First, let's start with the vertex, which is right here. This could be called angle F. All right, that's using the vertex. The next way we can use this number, that's angle 2. And the third way is using the 3 letters surrounding it. So if we look over here, oh, that's ugly. Remember, the vertex must be in the middle, so this is going to be angle E, F, G, and guess what's in the middle over there? That's right, the vertex. The vertex is always in the middle. Finally, we're going to name this marked angle. And the question here is, why should we not just use the vertex to name it? Why am I not just saying angle H? Why is that bad? All right, we don't want to do that. Well, because angle H could be one of 4 angles. That could be this angle, that could be this angle, that could be this angle, right? So it's not very specific. So when you have all these angles put together, you need to be very specific, and that's why we're not going to just use 1. In this situation, it's best to use 3 letters, okay? So if I'm specifically looking at this angle right here, all right, that's the marked angle. This is going to be angle. Our vertex is H, so that's going to be in the middle. It's going to be E, H, G, and the vertex is in the middle there. H is our vertex. Alright guys, that's the end of this lesson. Start doing your practice and then ask me for a mastery quiz when you are ready. Good luck! And don't forget to tell your mother that you love her tonight.